Everybody, sit straight, spine erect, chin away from your chest, eyes gently closed. Shift your eye gaze to the third eye, to the center of the eyebrows, the Jyotishmati, the light of awareness within. Take a deep breath and exhale. One more time. Let's begin today's session with an opening chant. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome to the Youth Excellence Center weekly Satsang session, weekly knowledge session. Today, we're going to inquire, or we're going to look into SamkhyaYoga, SamkhyaYoga from Bhagavad Gita and its correlation with some of the sutras from Patanjali, and also we'll try to map it to some of the learnings from the Upanishads and Advaita. And as I studied the SamkhyaYoga more deeply in the last several weeks, and I built a fascination for Sankhya. And for many of us who've been in the path of yoga, Sankhya is the foundation on which yoga is built. And Sankhya is one of the 6 darshanas from the Sanatana Dharma, 6 darshanas. And the beautiful thing about the Sanatana Dharma is, we always say this as a darshanas, means it's just a point of view. It's not something that is enforced upon. And that is the greatness of the eternal Dharma, Sanatana Dharma, is where everything is presented as a point of view from an experiential reality. And then, gives the freedom to the seeker to then go look at these point of views and make their own independent point of view to actually reach the infinity. And that's why there is a saying, there are infinite ways to pursue the infinity. It's not like something that is being enforced upon with a centralized authority, and then shall you only do this, shall you go, and there is no opportunity to question anything. But rather, all the different darshanas are offering a point of view so that you could then build enough of a foundation to build your own point of view and your own path, your own journey to reach the infinity within us. So let me share my screen, and we're going to start with the definition of Sankhya, and then start with some of the interpretation as the discourse or the discussion between Bhagwan Krishna and Arjuna, and something that is more universally applies to our day-to-day life. Share my screen. SamkhyaYoga. What does Sankhya mean? Sankhya, very simply, it means the right perception or the absolute perception, to be able to perceive the truth or the Sat. That is what is SamkhyaYoga. How do we cultivate ourselves to be able to see the things the way they are, without any biases, without any coloring? And that is the perception of the absolute. There's a perception of the truth. And that is what SamkhyaYoga is. And we all can actually build this perception amongst ourselves. That's our true identity. But unfortunately, with all the colorings and the mind, and we often drift away from this right perception. So let's actually go and inquire about this absolute perception. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go to the definition of Sankhya. What is Sankhya? And then why do we need to even go pursue this perception? Why do we need even Sankhya? And then we're going to go into some of the things about Sankhya's core. What is the real teaching of Sankhya? And what is the Sankhya structure looks like? And Sankhya presents many types of perceived realities, or the finite realities and the infinite reality, and how Sankhya, as originally conceived and perceived by Kapila, how he built the entire Sankhya structure. And then what are some of the core tenets of the Sankhya philosophy, mainly the Purusha, which is the individual soul. What is the Purusha's, the definition, the reality. And also we're going to go deeper into Prakriti, the Maya or the universe, and the universe reality, and all the 24 tattvas that come with it. And then we're going to try to unify all the learnings from what we've been studying so far, from Patanjali Yoga Sutras and from the Bhagavad Gita, some of the things that we talked about, Dharma Yoga, Karma Yoga, and then also connect to the essence from the Upanishads and the Advaita, and then bring it into the sense of oneness. So that is kind of the journey that we are on, and this is kind of an exploration, and we'll see how far and how this flows. And before we begin, let's start our Dhyana Shloka from Bhagavad Gita. Pardaya pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grahitam Purana Muninam Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshini Bhagavatim Astadashadhyayini Amba Tvam Anusandadami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshini Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshini. What a beautiful song. And I want to offer my pranam and salutations to Sri Ram Sarvottam Ji and Eka Ji, because all the learnings of my Sankhya is something that directly his blessings. And just to reveal the truth, for the past 3 or 4 weeks, I've been listening to just one of his lectures on Sankhya Yoga repeatedly, and I probably only realized about 10% or 20% of it. So this is literally my self-study, and that I'm sharing with you. And I'm always extremely grateful for Sri Ramji's blessings on me, who introduced me to the world of Yoga Sutras and Bhagavad Gita, and many other scriptures. So let's first look at what is Sankhya. We talked about Sankhya is absolute perception, the real perception of the absolute, the real perception of the Sat, the truth. The definition of the Sankhya, as it's been conceived, or is being conveyed or perceived by many of the Advaita scholars, including Shankara. The way Sankhya is defined as Samkhyaayate Prakashayate. Sankhya is defined as Samyak. Samya means, as we learned in Patanjali, Samyama. It comes from the word Samyam. What it means is excellence. It's something that is the highest. It is the consummate, the excellent, and the right. And the right form is the excellence form, or the wholeness. The Samyak Kyayate Prakashayate. And the Kyayate is the discerning ability to discern and perceive things, which is the correct or the excellent. And Prakashayate, something that is lucid, it's brilliant, and something that is very clear. That perception is Sankhya. Something that is the excellent, wholesome, that represents truth, and that is something that is very lucid, that is very clear, and that is brilliance. And that perception is Sankhya. And that is nothing but the truth. It's nothing but the truth. It is absolute. That is one. And if you look at, in today's world, most of the perceptions are subjective. We all have billion truths, or many billion truths. But the real truth, the absolute perception, the Sankhya is absolute. There is only one perception. And the beauty of this universe is, how can these billion minds with billion truths converge and unify into one absolute truth? That's the game of the world. That's the game of the creation. And sometimes it's also called the game of Go. game of zero. It's only when we shed of all our individual incorrect perceptions and then surrender to that one perception, and that's when we become one. That's when we arrive at Sankhya. SamkhyaYate prakashayate, the correct and clear perception of the reality around us is the truth. But what is not Sankhya? What is the opposite of Sankhya? What is the misperception? And there is a beautiful saying and a metaphor. It's called Rajju Sarpa Bhranti. Rajju means it's a rope. Sarpa is a snake. Bhranti, to be able to confuse ourselves. Sometimes, when you see a rope with not enough light, we get confused and we think that, it's a snake. And when you think it's a snake, what happens? You have all kinds of reactions. Your heartbeat raises, your sense of panicky, your fear, and you're doing unnatural things. You're doing unnatural things. It's a snake rope illusion. So we assume things for what they are not. And then that misperception causes suffering. That misperception causes suffering. Just like, when you see a rope and then we mistaken it for a snake, and then it causes all kinds of, suffering and panicky and attack and so on and so forth. And it causes us to react in a shift away from our true divine state. And then we act in very unnatural, limited ways. That is being not in Sankhya, in misperception. And the consequence of that is suffering and sorrow. And the beautiful thing is that Sankhya makes this bold declaration. And when I read about this declaration, I was like, oh my God, how profound this is. What Sankhya says is, this misperception, that Rajju Sarpa Bhranti, is the cause for suffering. The misperception causes suffering. But what Sankhya also goes to the next level and says that even the inverse is also true. All suffering is misperception. Anytime we have a negative emotion within us that is drifting away from being the divine that we are, the truth that we are, that means we are always joyous. Nitya Suchi Sukha Atma. Nitya Suchi Sukha Atma. Any state of being, any perception of us that deviates us from being happy or the joyful, that eternal state of our true identity, what that says is, that's also misperception. That means you're not seeing things the way they should be. So what it means is, anytime, what Sankhya actually says is, anytime you feel like, you're feeling negative, you're feeling sad, you're feeling suffering, all it says is shift your perception. Shift your perception. That's the greatness of Sankhya. It's so bold that all the misperception, because we are seeing things from a colored mind, that is resulting in suffering. And anytime you feel like, you're in a state of suffering, that you're not being the joyful that you are, you also know that you're not in a state of Sankhya. And that is also misperception. So all suffering is illusional. All suffering is illusional. And this is where Sankhya and Buddha, while the eventual outcome is the same, there's a little bit of a perception. If it actually looks at it, Buddha says suffering is, this world is all suffering. And then basically it's like, that goes into dukkha, trishna, kaivalya, marga, the four noble truths. The world is all suffering. And the reason for that is trishna, which is the desire. And if you transcend the desire, then you get the ultimate liberation, which is the kaivalya. And then there is a marga for that. There is a way how you can actually attain that. So I think, the eventual state is the same. Where Sankhya starts from there is, the kaivalya is our real identity. Our true identity is that eternal Satchit Ananda, or the Nitya Suchi Sukha Atma, that we are eternal and we are always pure and we are always joyful and we are indivisible. And then when the suffering happens, it basically says it's like, it's because, you shifted your perception. It's just illusional. And then that comes from, and again, goes back into the same, Buddha's kind of realization. It's because of his mind and sensory illusion that we are being played into. But you just shift the perspective, and then we come back to, we just get reposed in our true being. It's so profound. And then Bhagavan Shankara in Pratah Smarana Stothram, I mean, this is one of my favorite hymns, the favorite stotras. In 3 verses, he summarized the entire essence of Vedanta and Upanishads. And the 3rd verse, literally, it actually plays into the same Rajju Sarpa Bhranti. He explicitly calls out the delusional or illusional suffering that we're being played into, and then we just need to connect with the real true identity, which is the Supreme Purusha or the Vishesha Purusha that is reposed within us. And it goes something like this. And I'll just recite the 3rd one. And I'm sure I've sent the link to this Pratah Smarana Stotram. It's a very beautiful thing. And in fact, most days now, and almost every day, this has become my morning Supravatam prayer. The last verse goes, something like this. Pratarnamami tamasaha paramarka varnam purnam sanatana padam purushottamakyam yasmin nidam jagadasesham asheshamurtau rajva bhujangamiva pratibhasitam vaye. Rajva bhujangamiva, that same snake rope illusion. That snake rope illusion is something that is all manifested in this world that we are seeing. And that world is also part of that Purushottama, that one, the highest supreme, that one, that infinite reality that we are all part of, that we are nothing but that infinite. And that is what Shankara says, is that from that Paramarka Varnam, Purnam, that from that whole Sanatana Padam, that is eternal. There is no ancient or there is no time bound. That's something that transcends the dimensions of time and space. That whole Purushottamakyam, for that, the infinite reality. And that infinite reality, within that is the snake rope illusion, Rajva Bhujangamiva Pratibhasitam Vaye. That just gets shown temporarily as a manifested reality. It's a manifestation, but that is an illusional reality. That's just part of the infinite. And we have the ability to transcend and connect with that infinite reality within us. And then the 2nd verse and the 1st verse will also, explore the same truth and explore the different dimensions of the same truth. Like the 2nd verse goes, Yam neti neti vachanaihi. And that supreme truth is Yam neti neti, that it is not, that cannot be perceived by your mind or speech or any sensory thing. And only when you transcend this dimensions of perception, the limited perception of the mind and your sensory, what does your senses see? Your eyes only see certain colors. We talk about WebGR. It only sees certain dimensions of color. But that's only very small, tiny piece of the color in the entire spectrum of the light. The same thing, we can only hear certain decibels of the frequency in that infinite spectrum. Your mind only perceives some small element of reality that is based on your body and mind and sensory and sukshma, stula and sukshma and different levels. It's only when you transcend the mind into the samyama state, that's when we connect to the intuition and we can tune into the bigger reality. And that's why it says yam neti neti. That transcends beyond the limited perception of the mind and the sensory. Is the right perception, is the infinity. And that's a capability and that's a potential. And that's the destiny and that all of us are going to end up in. And what is the reason for this? What is the reason for this limited perception? Why we are not in the state of Sankhya? Why we are not always joyful? Sankhya says all suffering is misperception. But what is the root of that? We learned this from Patanjali, that there are 5 kleshas, afflictions, and the root klesha is avidya, the ignorance, having the wrong knowledge and wrong perception. Avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abnivesha, panchaklesha. All the reason for suffering or the miseries are happening is because of these five afflictions, 5 kleshas. And the avidya is the root klesha. Avidya is the wrong perception of who we are. And we basically get into, avidya basically assumes that, it identifies us with our own body and mind and whatever these senses and the mind and the body can perceive. And then it then creates a limited boundary, a periphery about who we are. We become so limited, so finite. And then we are trying to maximize profits for this limited existence. And we are trying to maximize things for ourselves, our body. We're trying to pleasure our senses. We're trying to, maximize profits for our own kith and kin and our own communities, our own associations, due to asmita, sense of I-ness. And raga, dvesha, some people we like a lot, some people we hate a lot. And abhinivesha is a fear of death, because we identify it's all rooted from that avidya. Avidya is anti-Sankhya. And this is what is the root. And our journey through the path of yoga and through the path of all the 4 yogas, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, Gnana Yoga, and Raja Yoga, is to be able to transcend these kleshas so that we can connect with the infinite, and then to be able to build the Sankhya, to see the things the way they are, to build the right perception. And we have seen this beautiful picture, and I think Ramakanji also shared in some of his talks, where the middle column is to be able to see anything, whatever comes into our experience, like money, or could be, some liquid, or we can see somebody, and we might. The thing is, when we see the things, we already put some labels into it. When you see some money, instead of just saying like it's money, we actually then immediately says like, oh, this money means, it's more, it's wealthy, I can actually get something. And we try to draw some conclusions and judgments and labels. We cannot just see for what it is. And when you see something like a cockroach, it's just an existence. And then we basically is like, oh, this is bad, this is good. And then we react in different ways. And when you see some liquid in some glass, and it's just like, oh, that's alcohol, that means it's good or bad. Both are the same, good or bad. That labeling is, we're actually getting into, we build so many of these colored biases, and then we try to respond based on our colored mind. And that is the journey of the yoga, is to be able to chitta vritti nirodha, to be able to shed all these biases, to be able to purify our mind so that it becomes colorless, uncoloring the colored mind. Chitta vritti nirodha. That's when tadadrastuhu swarupe avasthanam. That's when we repose ourselves in the source within. And then we are operating at that time, we're operating with the sense of intuition. There is no chatter. So we're acting like our thoughts, words, and actions will have that divine and then that supreme. And then everything will be right. And this is what we learned in Karma Yoga as well. Karma Yoga, we transcend that it's a punya or apunya. Punya or apunya. Because both are the labels. And we just simply go act. We simply see the things that they are, and we simply go act. Tatra dhyana jamanashem. We just go act, and it becomes residue free. We're not thinking about, is it a good action or bad action? Or is it a good money or bad money? We just go simply navigate, flow through life. So that is very quickly what is Sankhya and the root for the misruption. Sankhya is samyakyayate prakashayate. which is that the correct and clear perception of the reality, where we are directly connected to the essence, the absolute, the Sat. And then when you are in that mode, you're always in that Satchitananda, we're always in that eternal joy and the pure state. When you drift away from that, is when we get into all this roller coaster ride. And then the Rajya Sarpa Bhranti. And we then get into suffering. When Sankhya made the bold declaration that all suffering is misperception. And misperception leads to suffering. And reason for that is avidya, which is wrong perception of our identity. And it's that colored mind. And we have to transcend this colored mind. We have to make the mind be chitta vritti nirodha. And that's when we can actually cultivate the samyakyati. And that's when we have the samyama powers, which is the right intuition. And we are seeing and acting just the way they are, residue free. So why Sankhya? Why Sankhya? So why do we need to go into this, and what is the texting? And there are some interesting things from Bhagavan Krishna. And this is where Bhagavad Gita's second chapter, SamkhyaYoga, has many verses talking about the Sankhya Yoga, but it also the real knowledge of the Sankhya is not limited to chapter 2. There are some verses in the chapter 6, there are some verses in chapter 18, and also in the Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga, where we talk about all the 3 gunas and Prakriti. It's all part of the Sankhya. So Sankhya is the foundation that is covered in more detail throughout the Bhagavad Gita. If you look at the Bhagavad Gita, the chapter 1 and also the first 10 verses, they're all about the preamble for the setting where Arjuna is really going through his state of suffering, sorrow. Why is he having to fight in the battlefield? It's kind of, it's something that we all get situated in the world that we are in the Kurukshetra that we are in. We're always asking for questions like, why am I having to do this? In this, the profit and loss, this doesn't look like right. This looks like right. This might be a good action. This might be, why am I having to do this? A state of sorrow. That's when the real Bhagwan starts speaking. The real teaching begins from the 11th verse. And in fact, most of the commentaries start from this, because until that, now it's just the preamble, which is like where Arjuna and everybody is talking about why are we in the state of sorrow? Why are we in the state of sorrow? And then Bhagwan starts his teaching. It's based on Sankhya. And it goes like this. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Asochanam Vyasochastvam Pragyavadam Shabashase Gata Suncha Nanu Sochanti Pandita Nanu Sochanti Pandita. It's a beautiful slokam. And there's so many commentaries are written on this. What it says is, Arjuna means, we're all Arjunas here. It basically says like, people who are learned, people who have the right wisdom, they don't really go through this chatter of this grief. Is this the right thing? Is this not the right thing? This sorrow is not the right state of being. It means you're shifted away from your true state, from the right perception. It says like, the wise and the learned don't worry about who is living, who is dead, who is real, who is not, who is happy, who is sad. All these things do not come into the perception, do not come into the purview of the learned and the one who is connected to the right perception. So your worry is unbased or unfounded. That's what Bhagwan basically starts telling. It's like, he listens to all the complaints, all the sorrow, and then the grief that Arjuna has to say from Vishada Yoga to the first 10, and where Arjuna thinks that he's making a very logical case. Very logical case. He in fact even makes a case that, is it better for me to simply go to the mountains and meditate than actually having to fight and kill my own kith and kin, and so many soldiers and so many these things, so much destruction, so much life. And he's thinking that he's making very compelling arguments with his mind. And then Bhagavan starts. He says like, hey, the people who seems to claim that they are the learned and the wisdom, yes, panditaha, nanu sochayanti, they don't grieve and suffer like you, feel sorrow like you with all this chatter. Means, this is where you are shifted away from the right perception, and then the teachings start. And the teaching starts. The whole essence of this entire thing, that what Krishna says is, don't worry. You have nothing to worry here. All this thing that you're thinking about dead and living and this stuff, this is because you're connected to the wrong identity. You're connected to the body. Like the avidya, you're speaking from the kleshas, the root klesha. And that's where the Bhagwan starts the teaching. One starts the teaching of the Sankhya. And how nice it is for all of us to feel that suffering is all misperception. That we just have to shift the perspective. We can operate worry-free, so that we can liberate ourselves to just go do the things that we want to do, or just go do the things and see the things that they are, without having to worry about too much chatter in our brain. That's where Bhagwan says. And then Bhagwan also ends with the same sloka. His last teaching is also about all the shocha is unreal. There's no reason, don't worry. And then, of course, the Bhagavad Gita ends with the I-part shloka, inner peace and outer dynamism, where yatra yogeshwara krishno, yatra pardo dhanuddaraha, tatra shri vijayo bodhihi, dhruva nitir matir mama. Wherever there is yatra yogeshwara, where there is an inner peace in the mind, the chatter-free, chittavarti nirodha, the chatter-free mind, then outer dynamism, yatra pardo dhanuddaraha. Then we are skilled, and then going and engaging the world with the right perception and the right action from the karma yoga, selfless and self-empowering action. Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhutihi. That's where excellence will always be certain. Dhruva nitir matir mama. Just excellence. This is a recipe for excellence. Right perception, right action, based on inner peace and outer dynamism. Those four is the secret to getting to the right perception. And then Bhagwan goes into the different concepts of what is the soul, what is the prakriti, and he just starts with, don't worry, this is not something that you do, and then starts revealing the real details about why this is not true, and what is there, what is beyond the periphery, the costume of the body, and what is our true identity. Nitya Sucha Sukha Atma. The soul starts describing the attributes of the soul, so that we become more connected to our real identity as the Purusha, the individual soul, and then describes the Purusha and Prakriti. So that is what I wanted to start the beginning of this Sankhya Yoga for today. And then in the subsequent sessions, we'll actually get into more details of the attributes of the soul. How do we perceive and get more connected to our true identity, which is the Atma, or the Purusha within. And then we'll study into the different attributes of the Prakriti and how do we get into the oneness. So let me stop here for today and then see if you have any questions, comments, and thoughts. Anyone? Magaru, Ramakanji, will you agree with this this foundation of Sankhya, where it says all suffering is misperception and misperception leads to suffering?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. That is the whole. As soon as we remember the source, everything drops.
Exactly.
I think one of my masters used to say, you don't need to make the world unimportant. Once you get into sadhana, the world will become unimportant. You just don't need to try to do something. As soon as you go near the light, automatically the darkness goes off. So you don't need to work to make this corner, this darkness light, and that corner, make it more bright and all that. Don't need to do anything. Just bring the simple lamp inside and it takes care of everything at a shot. That's it.
Actually, this is what is Sankhya actually makes a claim. In Patanjali has Ashtanga Yoga, and there's a systemic process and sadhana that we do. But Sankhya says, just shift your perspective. Just shift your perspective. And everything is there. Just shift your perspective. So, like what you're saying, Ramakanji, which is like, just go understand the source, or just connect with the source within. And
separate yourself from the body-mind thing. It does. How I can't say I can be in awareness all the time, but I've suffered from pain from other like surgeries and things, and I can disassociate, and the pain almost vanishes. It's hard to even explain.
I mean, that's what even Bhagavan Maharshi, right?
Yeah, like it's there, but you're not in pain. It's almost like you detach yourself. It's like having a limb, knowing you have a limb, but you're disconnected from it. You know that it is there. So I don't take, meds for pain anymore. And I just do that. So it's a practical approach.
Yeah, actually Sadhguru and even in Advaita says, what is yours cannot be you.
Yes.
Your limb is yours.
Yes.
It's something that you acquired, and that's your tool, but that's not you.
Yeah.
Right? So what is yours cannot be you. And
anything that is yours can also be lost, right?
Exactly.
So
it's something that you accumulated.
Anything that I acquire can also be lost, can be taken away. So those are not the I.
Yeah. And it's also called the Digdarsha Viveka. Just like, how do we able to see the subject of what is yours? Even mind, it's like what you can perceive cannot be yours, right? You're being aware. The thought is not you. The mind is not you. The body is not you. And then in the sudden, it's like, then who are you? There's something that is actually shining light on the mind and thought. There's something that is actually all to experience your limbs. And there is the deeper, the light of awareness. That awareness is you. I mean, I cannot believe how our rishis were able to go to this level of
fascinates me. And why weren't we taught this younger is all what I keep thinking, and I don't know how to make correction and help the newer generation, because perhaps I learned these things a little too late to educate mine.
No, I think, the thing is, absolutely, I think it was there, but I believe over the years, we kind of lost this Sankhya style of explanation, the path of inquiry and the knowledge-based thing. And because not everybody is not there, so we tried packaging it into simpler things like, devotion kind of came in. And it's like, you don't think about anything, just surrender everything to Krishna, or surrender everything to Rama, or Shiva, or Ganesha. And then that's where we kind of created Bhakti Yoga and Karma. I mean, I think, we did a lot of experiments and tried to package it in different modalities so that it can appeal to different people. But eventually what has happened is people got stuck on the periphery, not the essence. Stuck on the periphery. In fact, the other day, I was reading somewhere, the periphery and essence. There was this beautiful question about, in the temples in India, there's always somebody tries to challenge Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma. It is like, why are, on the temples in India, why is there all kinds of imagery of all kinds of acts and on the periphery of the temples? And the beautiful explanation that I received is, yes, exactly. They're all in the periphery of the temple. When you're in the periphery, you can actually, experience all these kind of drama and dance and all that stuff. But only when you transcend the periphery, then you come inside to the temple to experience the oneness. I think right now, most of us are stuck in the periphery, which is rituals. We're unable to get to the core and the essence. But I think, I'm so glad that, some of us are together and we have this opportunity on the platform, individually and together, that we are able to contemplate and then go explore this journey. So what I'll do is, in the next one, we will go look at more dimensions of the Purusha and Prakriti and the 24 tattvas, and it's a fascinating thing, and how it all gets connected to Advaita and the Yoga Sutras. And ultimately, it comes down to, there are different paths. You can actually take the Karma Yoga, as we talked about, with all this, how do we act in our day-to-day life? And now with the right foundation of the knowledge, with the right foundation of the jnana, and the Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga and the Yogas, Raja Yoga, we will be, I think, wholesome equipped to navigate our life journey in a much more joyful way and spread the message of excellence all around. Ramakantji, any thoughts that you want to add before we adjourn for today?
Yeah, like Umaji said, right? It would have been great if we knew this knowledge earlier. The fun part here is, in this timeline, in this general time, I mean, like they said, master arrives when something about it. When the time is right, the masters arrive when the time is right, or something like that. So, for example, of course, I mean, I was very happy right from my whenever last 30 years of journey into this inward stuff. Fortunately, always inspired with the awesomeness of the masters, I never got into this question. Also made me settle down. In the sense, why I'm saying this is, at some point, this quest for silence also becomes a feverishness within us. In the sense, because my mentors, right, they are too very unfathomable for me, right? Because one gentleman would be able to see things physically that I cannot see, in the sense, there are so many experiences, right? So I have all these mentors who had all these interesting, like I shared with Sriniji, one of my mentors, around our age on the call, right? He was interested to spirituality, and then some fine day, he ends up into a crux, whether I or you kind of thing, where the entire Ram Parivar was talking to him, like you, me, and three of us are talking here. Very simple, right? So the Hanuman is moving around, Rama is moving around 24/7. They are just talking to him as is. So once we, but for some reason, right, I had this somehow, some kavacha or something I felt is never got into this feverishness that how come they get it, how come I don't get it? Because the moment I get into it, right, it is actually as soon as we think in the right way, actually our mind dissolves. Actually.
Exactly.
So as soon as so that's where I think one day I was attending
advanced course from
I
Sri
feel
Ji.
like that hankering goes away too, because all this achieving
Exactly.
is, even the spiritual achieving is another want, need,
Exactly.
whatever, right? Even that falls off.
Exactly.
Doesn't happen to me all the time, but I've experienced that accepting whatever that is, just, you know, I'm not saying be a dead person or anything motionless, but just
Yeah, actually, the thing is, it's not an inert state. It's not a dull state. It is actually the most dynamic state, right? You know, even the meditation, right? You know, that's what in the Karma Yoga, akarmanyasa karmanaya, karmanyasa akarmanya. So it's just like, you know, people who can actually see
do nothing
state of inaction in action, action in inaction. Even meditation, right? What we say is like, it's a continuous flow of action. It's not tamas state. It's actually the exuberant state, like sun. Sun is not like, you know, dull somewhere, right? You know, it's a brilliant radiance. It's like, you know, but it is like, you know, just be there. And then just but the sun's existence, the radiance, you know, shines so much light all around. And that's just the light. There's the prana, the reason for all the existence around.
Absolutely.
Right.
So we and especially when we see this, I mean, especially for, you know, females, it's even more easy to understand that the baby that gets born, we have to allow that time, the 9 months, for it to grow. It, like they say, give the time for the grass to grow. And obviously, of course, and I was also investigating into the Vedic astrology, right? So I do not know the science, but again, my mentors know it, and whatever the experimentation I have seen with it. Similarly, the Nadi astrology, which talks about they have a particular leaf, specific leaf that they go give their thumbprint, they get this leaf and they start to read. Oh my goodness, you are, I mean, all these kind of thoughts just disappear and we are awestruck. And even Sri Ji, one of his, Sri Ravi Shankar Ji, one of, we were on in advanced courses, and he was explaining about the difference between a question mark and an exclamatory mark. Is that the bend in the question, once it changes into the straight line, you know, it moves from the mind kind of concept or what next kind of thing, that feverishness, to, oh wow, like the Shambho kind of state where you are just, everything drops, everything dissolves. There is no more question. In fact, I also heard about this. Sanat Kumar.
Wonder. Everything is a sense of wonder.
Wonder.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember one of my Buddhist teachers years ago saying, "You are that which gasps for air when you see that rainbow in that one moment before you start to say, oh, this rainbow is beautiful. Oh, it's on this side. Oh, it's full, it's quarter, it's whatever." That moment before all those thoughts come, when you see that rainbow, when you're awestruck, that is who you are. And it lasts, what, nanoseconds, I think, often.
I think, you know,
like when you see a beautiful flower, right? Like when you go into the garden, especially if you're not watching your buds grow or something, you go out and you see and you're like, you don't even have words to express. You just go like, wow, right? That is what we are, as I'm reminded constantly. Hence, I love going out in the nature walks, and enjoy everything like I've seen it for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we were born with. When you're babies, that's what we were doing. It's like, you know, which is like, you know, the innocence. And in fact, you know, there's a beautiful talk from Sri Ravi Shankar. Is one of my, probably the #1 talk of Sri Ravi Shankar. It's from his early days. It's called the Sri Enlightenment. What is enlightenment? And it's a 45-minute talk.
You have to share it with us.
Yeah, and it starts with something like, you know, it's a beautiful story, and it says like, you know, there's all these fish in an ocean. They all come together, and somebody says like, you know, have you seen my great grandfather? Or no, they were all the fish. They all talk about in the ocean, they all congregate, and this is like, somebody asks a question, have you seen an ocean?
You're
And
in
then
it.
everybody is like, and then some guy is like, I know that, this guy's great grandfather has seen it. And then all the fish basically then go and then congregate, they build a temple, and then they start celebrating. It's like, this great grandfather had seen the ocean and all stuff. So we're all in that ocean. The fish is all in the ocean, but they were all trying to go and see that. It starts with that. And then what he basically says is, what is enlightenment is this journey to connect to that essence, journey to go back into your life, to connect to that childlike innocence. When you build the intellect, when you're smart, you become crooked, right? Then you're trying to maximize for capital gains and go ring the bell somewhere, right? And it's not like, it's like, how can you be smart, but be innocent? So that you go from a question mark, bent, crooked, which is like why, to that explanation where it all becomes like a sense of wonder, for everything. So that is, it's such a beautiful talk from Sri, and it made a big impact on me about 10 years ago. And since then, what's interesting to me is once we start on this journey, then everything seems to come to you.
Yes, like the universe. I have so many synchronicities, and I don't want to use all those fancy words, but I'm like, how does this happen? I'll be reading about I was reading about the 7 lokas, about 7 lokas below, and then randomly things come into my way. And of course, if I'm Googling, I know there's shared information, but a WhatsApp group that has no connection to what I'm looking at, or some friend talking about it. They don't know this. I'm thinking about this. It happens all the time. It's almost like God Almighty wants you to learn and graduate to that, whatever that next level is as we go along.
I think the more we start feeling full, start exhibiting that, like what you said, that air gap sense of joy of looking at the rainbow, the first impression of rainbow, whatever the sense of expansion that it gives you, before you start labeling it, is it right side, left side, what time it came, why did it come only this time, why didn't it come yesterday, that air gap thing, the more we create those moments, the more stuff will come to us. Like what it says, apuriyamanam achalam pravishyanti. It's like, when you start feeling more full, the rivers start flowing to you. You don't go chase looking for rivers.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, the reverse. For me, it's a wonder even for myself. The fact that I'm sitting here reading Rajyo Sarpa Bhranti, I was like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
Right? Or Pratah Smarana.
And I'll tell you, Srini, this, right? Just today, I was listening to another talk in which the teacher was talking about this Maya and this, and it's not like I'm chasing Maya, right? Today happens to be the day, and you're talking, and I had tears in my eyes because to me, this is utter coincidence. Within span of 8 hours, I'm hearing the related stuff again. I've heard about this before. I've seen cartoons. People hold the leg and say, this is a rope, this is a leg, because in Advaita, you will see the 5 blind men with the elephant, and each one describes everything differently. You see, and like all the modern Advaita teachers have this there. It's not something new, but I heard it today about Maya, how it is Purusha, Prakriti. And then here you are talking about Sankhya. I did a little touching here and there of Sankhya before, but not today. And I did not know this was going to be your topic.
Yeah. So it's like,
fascinating.
You're full. So I'm at your service. I'm the river flowing to you today.
Yeah.
No? So it is, wow.
So Umaji, she reminded about Maya. So just remembered this infographic. And interesting, the other day, I was doing some courses from ISKCON. And then in this 15th chapter, they talk about the inverted banyan tree. So inverted banyan tree. And so everything above this is all Krishna and Goloka. So they talk about this Goloka, and where everything is self-illuminating. There is nothing. They use this word fallible and infallible. Those which, I mean, so everything under this is all, there is a Brahma, and there's a liberation, there is this happening, all the pious acts here, but there are also economic development, religiosity, Vedic hymns, but all of it again is still, so all this is again, this falls into the Maya stuff, and this falls into the real. And when I was looking at, I was Googling some keywords, and then I stumbled another Caucasian American gentleman, white gentleman. He's a direct shishya of Chinmayanandaji, Swami Chinmayananda. And he takes classes in Europe and all. He drew this one. It was so nice. Maya, and then the causal, subtle, gross, Rajasthamas, and the I.
And then the
how the M and E.
Yeah.
How they work.
Everything is there. Wow.
This is Chinmayaji's
This is a very nice class that you took. I like it.
Sorry?
BMI. BMI is a good acronym, right? Body, body mass index.
Body, mind, intellect. Yeah.
Right. So Chinmayaji always uses this sheet. So wherever you see his talks.
I have seen the body, mind, intellect, because I have another young friend that talks, and he talks in this language, the body, the mind, and the intellect. Yeah.
So, there's a lot of, and then the same thing in a different way, right? When we say Maya, maybe for Umaji, I'll just show this infographic first. So this one is the, by the way, all of these are done by, when I say all, most of them comes from Swami Rama's disciples. And there is one Dandaswami from Florida called Jnaneshwarananda Bharati. He's a Caucasian American, and his website is called swamij.com. So
would you mind, if you're on the same chat with Srini, would you mind kind of like IMing me about this, please? Interestingly, you're talking about Swami Rama, right? I live in Pennsylvania. I've been wanting to go to his ashram for 2 years. I wanted to go right before COVID. For 1 year, they stopped. They started opening. It's not too far from where I live, a couple of hours. He's an amazing teacher, Swami Rama.
He's just phenomenal.
No, I mean, he can relate to Admi, is what I say,
Exactly. And until recently, I did not know that he was a doctor as well. I never knew that. He's done all those doctors stuff.
He's been wired and researched everything. He was, it's amazing. He's like
So on them,
I just wish I have 24 hours that I can just keep learning without having to eat, sleep, work, nothing.
No, you are already there, like this.
Oh, no. You said something about what you've been on this path for 30 years. And
No, just relax. Let me tell you that there is no 30 years. There is no 2 seconds. That is what
exactly.
I like to let you know
I
again.
believe that. I've had people ask me why you not somewhere, because I've been on this path for a while, and I'm shameless and say I'm an eternal learner.
No. Actually, that is where if you go to any masters, right? All of them say the same. That is, if you are talking this, means you are already in Satyaloka. And you are right here. Actually, you are none here at all in any form. You are right here.
Somewhere hanging in there.
No, you are in the Goloka directly. You are in the Goloka Vrindavan. Similarly, whether you call it the whatever you call it, the Paramatman or whatever, right?
Yeah,
so
trying to touch
we
God.
are not. No. So always, I know this. I understand where you are coming from and what you are saying, but no, whenever we are discussing this, whenever we are with this knowledge, we are right here. Similarly, we are no more in this zone. We are no more in this zone. We are right here in the awareness zone on the top. Right? So do please just give it a clean thought even further, and you will definitely agree, right? Because like again, Sri, somebody asks, so what do you think, maybe we are okay and all. No. It's not about okay and all. As soon as you are discussing this concept, you are in the womb of the mother goddess, you call it, the Vishnu, you call it. It doesn't matter.
It's like the fish in the ocean.
Exactly.
Yeah. But Srini, you cannot answer people, right? So I always say, I'm okay exactly where I am. I'm okay that I'm not okay. I'm okay that I'm okay.
Oh, and by the way, that word that you use is so very important. As soon as, that is amazing. Honestly, a lot of people, I don't hear that. So I'm really, and again, Umaji, I can tell you very clearly, there are so many signs in the last few minutes that you have talked that I can clearly tell you that master, you are not able to see it. I am not able to see it, but I can clearly tell you, or I can tell you, I don't know which master that is. I may not be able to name the master, but I can tell you, profoundly available with you, 100%, very solid. It's just a matter of time. I don't know what that time is. I know that. I just want to assure you that.
No,
thank you.
And the beautiful thing is, the beautiful thing, because all of us are in the same zone. The bullseye, the infinite realization is such a big bullseye. Everybody is going to get there, right? It's just that different people are operating in different zones. When you're doing it, a lot of people come and ask you, where are you? Why is it taking so long? And the thing is, we can go from there, from that question to, we can make that into an exclamatory mark, which is like, I don't know. I mean, that's a wonder. We are trying to figure it out. I think these things, I also get this, so many ways. Why are you this way? Why are you do this? You do this, don't do this. Ye karna hai, wo karna hai. I was like, just stop, at some point, just start smiling at everything.
You just smile and just don't even answer. That's what I do.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, it's not because I'm trying to discount anything. How do I know? I have a sense of wonder.
Exactly.
I'm here the way that I am. That's it.
And what do I know? Like if you followed Bhagavad Gita, it is based on my karma. I don't know. My pichle, like this is a sliver of a chapter in my life. So what do I know? I know nothing.
Exactly. I think, once we start being that, surrender, just be a witness reality. I think, that the witness reality, I mean, I cannot really appreciate how it, I mean, there are like so many metaphors in Bhagavad Gita, like, this graphs, like, and if you then go to the Ashtavakra Gita, it's like the ocean and the wave. And it's such a simple thing. Just like, a wave, thinks that, it's a separate, but it's never separate from the ocean.
Yeah. Until it falls back and becomes one with the ocean.
Yeah, but even when it's not fall back, it's always been, it's the same
it's
water.
Part of it, right? Exactly. Right?
It's always, and the thing is, the beautiful thing is, there is one where we say it's all illusion, the Maya is all illusion, but there's a deeper, there's an Advaita interpretation is like, even this Maya is also part of that infinity. It's like
yes, and without that, you wouldn't be able to become a realized person. You would have no reason to exist. Exactly. Right? If we are part of the one and we separated ourselves for whatever reason, now if I need to go back, I need a medium to go back. And Maya provides that world for me to go back.
I think this is such a beautiful thing. The mind is Maya. All the suffering and the creation is within the mind. It's all artificial reality. It's just like literally, scientifically, that's what we are trying to do with the virtual reality and the mixed reality. We are like in the mind and creating whatever the world.
You tasted it, you touched it, exactly. I mean, so the thing is, people have no problem looking at virtual reality through a pair of glasses and experience all that. But if we are told that you are living in an illusion that's casted by whatever, or that you came into this, if you're living a dream, doesn't mean like, you're living a dream life, not English metaphor, but it's hard for people to figure out because you're in it at that moment, right? We are in it right now. So it becomes a concept. So hence, for me, it's easy to go to, Nishkama Karma Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. And Jnana Yoga is great, but sometimes it's hard to, you can conceptualize, you can, knowledge doesn't become wisdom until you actually experience it. And that to me happens in less than spades. So
actually, what I mean, I might be wrong here, is Shankara, like, is one of the greatest, scholars that he has. And all these Advaita people, right? Even Sarvapriyananda, Vivekananda. But then eventually, they actually, from that Advaitam, they also then go celebrate the duality, the bhakti. And that then it becomes such a...
Yes, even Sarvapriyananda says, for Aam Aadmi, bhakti is easy because it actually switches your mode, right? Then you have a chance to meditate and then connect deeper. Chanting does transcend the nowness that we experience of all the problems, everything, right? You see ISKCON, right? People that you forget everything. You forget everything while you're in it.
Yeah. I think, that's, and it creates more celebration, right? And that's why it says like, Bhaktyati kalpitam advaitam mati sundaram.
So Sriniji, so I know, I wanted about 7 minutes, only if we have time. If not, we can do next time.
I did not know you guys have a thing. I basically, become chatty Cathy. So please present what you wanted to.
So Ramakanji, if you
we will catch up.
No, how about we'll do it next Saturday, and then we'll have a little bit more. And then what I would want you to do is, I would want you to start with it, and then not 7 minutes. I would want you to actually take on a journey.
No, that because somebody worked very hard, and there is a 7-minute video that is there. Once you watch it, whatever we spoke for so many minutes or hours or days or of our lives, somebody put very hard in infographic way, entire Vedanta into simple 7-minute video. This is again one of the Brahmacharini Swamini of Swami Rama, actually. And I'm always surprised. She's from Europe, and amazing. So we'll definitely do it next.
Next class, I think, we're going to do that as, and then I think, since we are going to do that, what I would love for you to do is start with that. And then we can either, all do a satsang and then do our own interpretations. And then,
So what it is like it's like a, what is that, icebreaker kind of thing. So once anybody runs it, it doesn't matter. Once they run it, next 1 hour, everybody has to talk. There is no other possibility.
Actually, so why don't we surrender to that experience for next week?
Exactly. I will send it to you offline as well. Please do watch it. And that way, even you run it, then, then everything flows. With that,
Okay.
Listen,
and I'm sorry if I derail. I did not know the forum.
No, not at all. This is just an informal, very, very. It just struck me just now, but everything will have its own time. No hurry.
No, we'll actually, because this is a weekly, Saturday thing. Next week, we'll start with that 7 thing, and let that be the focus of next week's session.
That is great.
Everybody, then say close your eyes. We'll chant Om and then end the session. Take a deep breath for Aum. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Up your palms. Generate the fire and love of knowledge. Up your eyes to transmit this knowledge, to give us the right Sankhya, right perception, to see the things the way they are. Gently, with a bright smile, open your eyes. And thank you all for sharing this wonderful satsang on a Saturday evening. And I learned so many things, and as always, and let's meet again next week.
Namaste.
Namaste. Bye.